Alright, so follow me. Just follow me real quick. I'm gonna take you on this little journey real quick. So I used to watch Toonami. This was a block of anime on the Cartoon Network. And on Toonami they had the host. His name was Tom. He was like a robot. He had different versions. But every now and then Tom would just drop these prolific philosophical lines. One time Tom goes,
here's something they don't often tell you in movies or TV shows. Sometimes the bad guy wins. It happens.
Tom says, sometimes the bad guy wins. It happens. And I say that to say the Diddy Verdict is in. And he won. And I know there's a lot of different feelings about that. But let me just give you my take on this. I'm Tahchee. This is the Culture Lock. This is my take. Let's go. Alright. So the verdict came in, right? The Diddy verdict came in. And you know what? Let's jump straight to the charges real quick. Let's just read through them. Read through all the counts. And let's go through it. So he was tried with RICO. That's the top charge. So it's RICO. It's 2 counts of sex trafficking, and then it was 2 counts of the Mann Act. Going across state lines with the intent to engage in prostitution. A very wonky law. If you want to read into the Mann Act, you can read into it and see how wonky and how racial it was. But on count 1, the racketeering. He's a racketeer, criminal enterprise. He was found not guilty. You might be wondering, but why? So, if you decided to feel that he was guilty, if you're a juror and you're like, oh, I think he's guilty of this, well then now you gotta prove at least 2 acts that would make it a racketeering conspiracy. So, we'll go through the acts. First act, acts involving kidnapping. Obviously, after we've seen through the trial and through the testimonies of both Cassie and Jane Doe, nobody was kidnapped. Nobody was forced to stay somewhere. Nobody could not leave where they were at any point in time. That just didn't happen. So that wasn't proof. Acts involving arson. They brought Kid Cudi up there. They had a whole thing. He was funny. But it wasn't strong. It was not a strong testimony to the point where they told the judge that they want that theory pulled out. Don't even worry about that. Because they didn't really have anything that linked Diddy to the arson. We could assume, you could theorize, you could think, but there's no proof of it. So it wasn't proved. Acts involving bribery. I think you might refer yourself to the hotel video of Cassie unfortunately getting beat by Diddy, and that he paid the security guard for the footage. But now you have to link that to this RICO, because that's a DV thing. So does it really link? And then you have acts involving witness tampering, something else that just wasn't proved. They didn't prove it. It's the idea that he's a bad guy, so he probably did that. But that's not how it works. Acts involving forced labor. Forced labor. You have to do this. Jane Doe, Cassie, they were not forced to do anything. They were there with a purpose, and they were there for a reason. It's unfortunate, but they were just in they were both in a toxic relationship with Diddy. But they weren't forced to do anything. They were not forced to do anything. There was no forced labor. Nobody that worked for him was forced to. They were all given a paycheck. They were employees. There's no forced labor. And then his girlfriends, Cassie, Jane Doe, were his girlfriends. They weren't forced to be his girlfriends. It just is what it is. So that wasn't proved. Acts involving sex trafficking. From going through Cassie and Jane Doe's testimony, they weren't sex trafficked. Sex trafficking is like taking somebody, throwing them in the back of a van, and this is it. This is your life now. You can't come and go as you please, which they could both do. They enjoyed it, which is not what people that are sex trafficked do. They just know that this is their way of life, and there's nothing that they could do about it. That wasn't their situation. They weren't sex trafficked. They could come and go. Cassie went home to see her parents. You're not sex trafficked. You're involved in something very toxic. Acts involving transportation for purposes of prostitution is the only act that I think was proven on a technical level, because if you're going off the Mann Act, it's very it's just, if you are with a person, you take that person from New York to New Jersey, you and that person engage in sexual activities, money is exchanged at some point, prostitution. It's a wonky law, it's an outdated law, but it's used when it needs to be used. And in this, they proved that. It happened. Acts involving drug distribution didn't happen. He wasn't selling dope, he wasn't slinging, he was doing the drugs. He was doing the drugs. What we saw through this trial was that he's an addict, and he was doing drugs heavily. And his girlfriends were doing drugs with him. So that's not proof. He wasn't just distributing drugs. He wasn't giving drugs off to anybody. He was doing the drugs. His girlfriends were doing the drugs with him. They admitted to doing the drugs because they wanted to feel however they needed to feel to do whatever they had to do. So, not proved. It just wasn't proved. Then we go to count 2. Sex trafficking of Cassie Ventura. She wasn't sex trafficked. I just went through that. She wasn't sex trafficked. That didn't happen. She was in a relationship, and she did what she felt she needed to do to please Diddy or whatever she thought. Count 3. The Mann Act. Transporting Cassie from here to there, having sex and money being exchanged at some point too on top of that. Sure. He's guilty of that. He's guilty of that. Count 4. Sex trafficking of Jane Doe. Jane Doe was down with the get down. She was hot to trot. She was ready to do it because it facilitated her lifestyle. He's paying her rent. She likes nice things, and she likes to go to nice places. So she did what she thought she needed to do. Not sex trafficked. If you're hungry for money and you want to do strange things for some change, hey. But you were together, you were in love. No sex trafficking. Heart stop. And then the count 4 would be the Mann Act for Jane Doe. And again, if Cassie got the guilty, then she gets the guilty too. So yes, he's guilty of those 2 counts. People are upset. They're upset. Because I think sometimes we put ourselves in these positions that, well, this has nothing to do with you really. But you're mad that, he got off. And he didn't really get off. His reputation, his career, he was humiliated. He's done. So he didn't really get off. What he did get was his freedom though. So that he's not spending the rest of his life in jail. Because he was a weirdo. We gotta stop it at some point. And there has to be some kind of accountability for everybody involved in this. If you were there for the money, you were there for the money. If you were there for the fame, you were there for the fame. If you were there for access, you were there for access. It is what it is. We got to be honest with each other. Like, we can't keep going like, okay, yeah, no, but actually now I think he did me wrong. He didn't do you wrong. You was having the time of your life. You were having the time of your life, and you liked it until you didn't like it. I hear you, but I don't care. Ain't nobody saying Diddy's a good guy. He's a bad guy. But as I said at the start, sometimes the bad guy wins. The prosecution had a case that they did not make. They thought they had something, and they had nothing. They jumped the gun because the civil suit came out from Cassie. The video came out. They're like, oh, we got to do something. Oh, we can get this guy. They made a whole show of this. It was a show. Homeland Security, right in his crib. We like, oh, wow, they got something. Oh, this is about to be crazy. They brought in Homeland Security. This is about to be nuts. They get to trial. No mama AC. They get to trial. And nothing comes out but text messages. They're reading text messages. For a month straight, they're reading text messages. That's it. They showed a picture of a gun. That's it. The baby oil meant nothing. None of that meant anything. This ideal of hard drives, when they showed the jury the freak off came from Cassie's phone. They made a show, a spectacle of this, and thought that they could just get it off the strength of, well, but he's a bad guy though, so maybe the jury would just rock with it. But the jury did their job. They did their job. And they said, based on the evidence, this is what we have. This is our verdict. And you might not like it. You might think he got off, and you might think like, oh, but it should have went this way. No, it's going the way it's supposed to go. Because y'all came into court half-assed. Y'all jumped the gun. We got him. With what? We thought we were going to see orgies and X, Y, and Z. All we saw was cuck videos. Cuck talk. He wants to make his own pornos. He's gay or bisexual or whatever it may be. But we didn't get no evidence to what y'all charged him for. And now the government's sitting there embarrassed. But at the end of the day, they can still get their win, and they're gonna try to get a little win back. They're gonna try to get the judge to do what they want him to. They gotta get a win. They gotta leave with something. The max that could give Diddy for the prostitution across state lines is 10 years. He got 2 counts, so that's 20. Now, there's no way in the world that I think the judge could justify giving him 20 years, give him the max for both of those crimes. There's no way he could justify doing that. It's prostitution, okay. There's no way. Nobody's ever done that kind of time. Nobody does the max. But he might split the baby. He might go, well, I gotta give him something. So there is a world where Diddy's not gonna be in jail for the rest of his life, but he's gonna do a hard 10. He's gonna do 5 for the one count and 5 for the other count. And he's gonna give him 10 years. And it's gonna be what it's gonna be. They're gonna appeal it. He's gonna probably win the appeal because it's unprecedented. That doesn't happen. You get 1 to 2 years for that. You just do. So he will probably win that appeal. Even if he lost that appeal, 9 times out of 10, at the end of Trump's presidency, he's gonna pardon him. So he's not doing that time. He's coming home in a year or 2. However you wanna look at this. He's coming home in 2 years. Max. You might be mad, and you could stay mad. But sometimes the bad guy wins. And if you come half-ass, expect half-ass results. But I'm Tahchee. Those are my thoughts. It's the Culture Lock. Keep it locked. I'm out.